In this week's episode of JKS Garage, we talk the ideal two-car garage. What would that look like? Now, this has been a hot topic of discussion with my buddies for quite some time. Now, we all can have our dream two-car garage, but we've got to be realistic. I mean, budget plays a huge part of this. So there has to be some ground rules when we talk about what the ideal two-car garage would look like. Firstly, the budget should be R1 million for both vehicles. And I think that is realistic. To achieve that, there should be a joint income from yourself and your partner. The other consideration is the family. Generally, we'll say there are 2 kids associated with this family. And I think the other consideration should be that as you have 2 kids, you should have an active-ish lifestyle. I'm talking about taking the kids to a game of hockey, cricket, cycling, possibly a weekend away to the bush, something of that sort. Oh, and that garage should consist of an SUV and a mid-size 4-door sedan. So let's start with the SUVs. Now, there's quite a number of SUVs out there. And as our budget is sitting at R1 million, theoretically 500 for each vehicle, and you should be fine. So SUVs, I went online, looked at the various platforms out there advertising vehicles, and I narrowed it down to 3 options. So first of all is the Mitsubishi Pajero. I looked at the 3.2 diesel, very good vehicle there. I also looked at the Discovery 4, 3-liter diesel, and the Toyota Prado. Now, the reason why I looked at these specific vehicles is that I've seen a fair amount of the Toyota and the Discovery out on the roads, and I thought why I included the Pajero was because, well, I've always admired it for one, and secondly, I said, okay, fine, that's I think a dark horse, if you want to call it that. So I've added that in to the mix. So let's start off with that Toyota Prado. I've had a look online and I found a 2015 model that came in at 450k, so under budget. I mean, like I said, we allocated 500k. Spec-wise, the Toyota Prado has a 4-cylinder 3-liter turbo diesel. It makes a decent 120 kilowatts with 400 newton meters of torque and has a claimed fuel economy of 4.5 liters per 100. Let's start with the good for the Toyota Prado. So when I got into this vehicle, it's absolutely plush interior. Leather all over, premium quality finishes. You really feel comfortable in this vehicle, covering large amounts of mileage. The other thing that struck me about this vehicle was there was plenty of space, especially if you've got a family, 2 kids, like we mentioned. That's a prerequisite. Obviously, carrying your kids, their luggage, their bikes, their equipment, their cricket gear, hockey, whatever it is, it's got vast amount of space to carry that. On the road, the Prado is a really comfortable vehicle to cover long distances. I remember driving this over a long distance. At the end of my travel, I didn't really feel the hundreds of Ks that I covered. Now, taking the Prado off-road, I was really impressed by its off-road capability. Honestly, you feel like a king, having conquered just about any obstacle that comes your way. I have seen and met people that have subjected their Prados to a lot more off-road abuse than what I have tested the vehicle on, and I was really impressed by these stories and from what I've seen these vehicles do off-road. So really, really capable, impressive vehicles off-road. There are proper dials or switches to engage relevant off-road modes, which I much prefer than some of the digital interfaces currently available on some of the modern vehicles. And of course, Toyota's legendary reliability. That 3-liter diesel engine is fantastic. So what's bad about the vehicle? As I said earlier on, this is a large SUV, so it's a cruiser. Guys, it really is not aimed to win any speed records. So please be mindful of that. I've heard a lot of people get into this and expect a lot more on-road performance of the vehicle. 400 Newton meters is good enough for a vehicle of this size, considering what it is. When the vehicle is fully loaded, it does tend to be a bit sluggish, so be mindful of that. The other thing is fuel economy. When it's fully loaded under heavy load, this tends to be a very, very thirsty vehicle. So you can expect rather something of around about 15 liters per 100. I've seen and heard again some people say that. With my experience of the vehicle, I was averaging between 11 and 12 per 100 Ks, but again, that's not under a heavy load. So the other option we have is the Mercedes C63, the W204. Now, I've managed to find one of these online at 550k. This is a 2010 model with 110,000 kilometers on the clock. Spec-wise, this came with a the legendary 6.2 liter V8, 336 kilowatt, producing 600 Newton meters of torque. So the good. Let's start off with that sound. That 6.2 liter engine, oh my word, that is stuff that is absolutely legendary. This vehicle has been discontinued for obviously quite some time now. And up until now, people are still talking about the sound performance of this engine. I still get goosebumps thinking about the sound this engine makes up until this day. Overtaking with that 6.2 liter engine was an absolute breeze. Touch that accelerator pedal and you will feel that 600 Newton meters of torque. Absolutely insane. But it gets better. If you're brave enough, put that pedal to the floor and that traction control light kept on blinking and you will be pushed into your seat. That feeling from this car was absolutely phenomenal. It really was a muscle car from Mercedes. Who would have thought? And of course, it's a Mercedes. So driving this normally, if you can call it normal, there was always that level of comfort that you would expect from a Merc. So the bad, obviously fuel consumption. I remember getting 22 liters per 100 and holy shit, I had to constantly go to the garage to get this thing filled up. Absolutely insane. Besides your petrol bill, please bear in mind you will go through tires on this. You have been warned. Other issues include a cracked head manifold on high mileage models. What else was there? Oh yes, the head bolt, which would corrode and if left unattended to would lead to much, much bigger problems with this vehicle. The other negative on this vehicle is that because it's a naturally aspirated car, more specifically that 6.2 liter is an absolute legend of an engine, prices are rising fast on these vehicles and they're getting really difficult to find. So that quoted price of, what was it, 550? Like I said, I think those prices will go up further. Other than that, it's a pretty reliable car, considering the performance. So what would be my pick? Well, for the SUVs, you know what? I've actually narrowed it down between the Toyota Prado and the Mitsubishi. Now, of the two, I would not definitely, but for me, it was a difficult pick. At the end of the day, I would go for the Toyota. Listen, the Toyota and the Prado are absolutely fantastic machines. On-road capabilities for large SUVs, fantastic. Off-road capabilities for both, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But at the end of the day, I opted to go for the Toyota Prado. And the reason for that being is that the parts availability on the Toyota were readily available. Large network of Toyota dealerships. Just in case something did go wrong, you could take it in there and get it sorted out. Together with resale values of the Toyota, pretty much any Toyota out there, you are guaranteed to get a good resale value. So end of the day, my choice would be the Toyota Prado. So on to the sedans. Now, Initially, I thought it would be a clear-cut winner in my mind when I started this podcast. But having reflected on these cars that I've driven in the past, it really wasn't a simple decision, an easy decision. All three cars are fantastic. The Audi, when driven, the Quattro system makes you feel like an absolute king, no matter the road condition. It easily, comfortably puts the power down. It makes you feel like a driving god, for lack of better words, a cliche. The Mercedes is an absolute bully, hooligan on the road. Well, actually, all of the cars are if you put the traction control off. But again, the Mercedes would kill you. The BMW, for me, driven hard, it's the most rewarding car here. Hands down, it's the most rewarding car. There's a but. At the end of the day, I constantly get drawn to that Mercedes, that sound, that performance, 600 Newton meters of torque. Man, it's just insane. It's absolutely insane. Again, any one of these cars, if you were to get, they are fantastic. But that Mercedes, I'm just constantly drawn to that Mercedes. So for me, that's the pick of the bunch. Just again, be warned, whichever car you choose, keep enough money aside for budget for petrol. It's going to kill you with these vehicles. But with that Mercedes, tires as well. Just, again, you've been warned. But yeah, pick up the bunch, Mercedes for me.